And I just love discipline. In fact, Michelle's right. I do love Jocko Willink. I read his book and I was like, oh my God, this person is me. You can imagine my surprise when I then later saw a YouTube video of Jocko Willink. And I'm like, okay, maybe you would have less in common than I thought because
he's a big Navy SEAL dude and you're a tiny little female.
He could squash me.
Oh, wake up, rethink the status quo. When you get your money right, then you're the one who runs your life. Come build a wealthy spirit with Sammie and Michelle.
Michelle, do you remember the first self-help book that we ever read?
Was it How to Make People Like You in 90 Seconds?
No.
What are you thinking about?
I am talking about Stephen Covey, son of Franklin Covey.
Yes.
Author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens.
Ooh, so true.
So true. When we were in high school, there was this club called Project Lead. It was a great club. I think the only purpose of this club was to help organize gatherings.
So it was volunteering and stuff, right?
Volunteering, you're right. And I remember I signed up for this 7 Habits thing. Pretty much it was a gathering of truants or people under disciplinary action. And they were giving a lecture about the 7 habits of highly effective teens.
Wait, is that true?
Yes. And I was there volunteering, and everybody there got a free book, including me.
And me.
I don't know if these truants were inspired, but I was so inspired. I think this is really the first time someone had put into words that you could take action to make your situation better in a organized book format. And after that, I was hooked. After that, I think is when I noticed that at our house, we have Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yes, we had a lot of self-help books because I'm pretty sure our library gave away free books every now and then. They had a little shelf. And then us and our mom would just dig through them and grab some books. This is also how we ended up with Cal Newport's How to Be a Straight A Student. And after a while, we had this little book collection of all these rando, pretty old-fashioned books. But that's so funny because I remember Project Lead was about volunteering. It was about going to volunteer with a cleanup or something. And this one was just a lot of points. So we signed up for it. And we didn't even know going in that it was just a presentation on Stephen Covey's book. But here we are, sharpening our saw. The other 6 habits.
We should read it again. It was a great book.
We should read the adult version for sure.
Yes.
But you know what, Sammie? Something that I have realized is that a lot of times people get overwhelmed by all of the self-help content out there. I've been the same way. Part of the reason we even have the Build a Wealthy Spirit podcast is to share and curate the stuff that we have found really helpful and make it accessible to you. But I think a missing skill that I had to develop over time was knowing what to take in and what to take out, what to weed in and what to weed out. There's so much information out there. Some of it's contradictory. Do you wake up early? Do you go to bed late? Do you take a cold shower? Does something that, let me tell you, Indian people will not be happy about. We don't necessarily know what's right or what's wrong. And I think that that's sometimes where a lot of the criticism with self-help and self-development comes from. So Sammie and I wanted to talk today a little bit more about how do you actually weed through all of that information? And we will share our own methods because we love the topic, but we definitely don't do everything that we read. We have a method, in fact.
Let's get into it. But before we do, we wanted to share a product that we are loving, and that is Daily Harvest.
No surprise, Sammie. We have really been enjoying Daily Harvest. We eat the smoothies. It's literally the only fruits and vegetables that we get in our diet, which sounds a little insane because we do care a lot about building a healthy spirit.
Yes, we're working on that.
We are. We got into a bad place with McDonald's, both literally and figuratively. And
so true.
We wanted to change that because honestly, look, we love a good fast food stop, but we were doing a little bit too much. The buy one, get one, it got us going.
McDonald's BOGO led us down a slippery slope.
It really did.
But now we're back.
We've got vegetables. We're doing their smoothies. We love the ones with like dragon fruit, pineapple matcha. Ones that are great for the summer, which, by the way, it's 100 degrees here. And let me tell you.
It's 100 degrees on a good day.
It's 100 degrees and it's May. So keep in mind that we have really been enjoying a nice cool drink for the summer. So let's eat better together. In our show notes, you can find our referral code to get $65 off your first box of Daily Harvest.
Now back to today's topic. How do we weed through, how do we understand, how do we implement all this self-help information?
It was cool because Amy and I found this piece from Forbes, Why Self-Help Books Don't Work and How to Nevertheless Benefit from Them. Spicy title.
Very spicy title. And I will say, it was only maybe about 6 or 7 years ago that I even realized that people detest self-help books.
So true. I don't know if this is a new thing, but people, there is a whole anti-self-help book culture.
I was shocked. I was like, who doesn't want to help themselves? But I can see it. Some of it comes off a little cheesy and it can feel like maybe a little overly optimistic or Pollyanna. Sometimes it can just be confusing about how to incorporate all this information.
Yeah. I mean, the truth is also anybody can do a self-help book. And not everything works for everybody. A couple of things that the author of this piece highlighted was that some of the criticisms of self-help is that it can have a negative effect. I guess maybe if you're working a little too hard to improve yourself, maybe accidentally hurt yourself. I don't want to call anything out specifically, but I don't trust ice plunges. So true, Michelle.
I do want to try ice plunges, but I do think my temperature is going to be probably what most people consider lukewarm. Because you got to work for what your body's made for.
And
I'm made for a warm climate, and it's not ice.
He also talks about the placebo effect. So thinking or attributing it to this new change you're making in your life, but it's actually something that, I guess the concept is that you're like attracting change, but it's not about this specific change. I don't know. That one a little to me, I was like, if you have change, who cares if it's a placebo or not?
I agree. I'm like, if it's a sugar pill, that's not too much sugar, why not?
The best thing he points out, though, is that there can be no effect. And that's because people sometimes people just, you read the back cover and you feel like you got it. You read the title. Hey, I'm not going to lie. That's me with when the body says no. I'm like, I got it. And I
always think that I've read The Body Says No. I did read. No, I've read. No, I'm thinking of The Body Keeps the Score. I have not read The Body Keeps the Score. I have read The Body Says No. When the Body Says No.
By Gabor Mate.
Excellent book. And I just assume that I know what happens in When the Body Keeps Score. And it could be a completely different book.
It is, so exactly the point, So we thought his piece was a great compliment because he does highlight that there are potential negative sides to getting a little bit into this productivity world. You can get really deep in there. You can get obsessed with the tool that is this idea that you get from a book. And that's not the point. The point, I think, is to find something that's in alignment with you.
Step 1 of getting useful information out of self-help books. Learn. Pick up a book, read it. See what's in there. Don't have to worry about whether you're going to implement it or how this is all going to work. Just be a little sponge and take in the information.
Yes. And you can take in the information and be selective about it. You can process it. You can critically think about what you're listening to or reading. In the Forbes piece, he talks about a technique called Lectio Divina, which means divine reading, which he really emphasizes is mostly slow reading. Like, take a second, process it. Don't just try to get through it. I have a great example here, Sammie.
Oh, please.
Do you remember when you read The Alchemist?
Oh, yes.
When we read The Alchemist. Sammie read The Alchemist.
I actually had read The Alchemist, or at least I thought I had. And I told Michelle to read it.
Yes. And then I loved it because The Alchemist is great. And there's a part in the book where he's about to embark on his journey. He's about to go into the desert, but he gets a little sidetracked. He works in a store for a little bit. And let me tell you, this is a major part of the book. And I told Sammie, I really related to the part in the book where he goes and works in the store. It reminded me about how we can get sidetracked by things like jobs and things like that, which don't necessarily align with our value. And she was just like, what?
I didn't remember this part. And if I'm being frank, I probably fell asleep.
Yeah, 100% she fell asleep. I was like the guy at the store owner, the pilgrimage to Mecca. She was like, what? I was like, oh my God. And the funny thing is if you just zap out of that part of the book, which Sammie did, she zonked out, it's literally like he decides to go after it and then he gets it. No conflict in between.
I really like the book still. I think it's well written. I still found it interesting, even though I guess I missed a major chapter of struggle.
She did go back and listen to it, though.
Needless to say, I was no lectio divina, as they would say.
I like to listen to self-help book on audiobook. A lot of people say they're repetitive, and a lot of them are repetitive, so I actually don't mind, like a few chapters in if I'm like doing my dishes and I'm not so invested in it. But I do think you got to make sure you're not listening to it so quickly or just like trying to get through it. Or like both of us, for me, when the body says no, for Sammie with the body keeps score. Sometimes we read the title and we think we know what's going on. So slow reading is a good thing to have. Like, just make sure you're paying attention. This seems obvious, but I think if anyone has read multiple self-help books, you will know that sometimes you slip.
And you know what I have to say? Don't feel too bad. I got to disagree with the author of this Forbes piece a little bit, because there is something to say about you just go through a bunch of content and you're going to pick up some information still. So I don't necessarily think it's terrible. I don't think you got to meditate on it like it's the Bible or something. Just, do what you can.
Yeah, the things that I enjoy, I will go back and listen to. I'll take notes. I'll like pause and make a clip. And sometimes you listen to something and you're like, this wasn't really what I thought it was going to be. For example, when I was reading The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem by Nathaniel Branden, I thought the book was going to be about how not to have a superiority complex.
Oh, I remember
out,
this.
It's about having low self-esteem. Also, turns out that he dedicates a good chunk of this book to his relationship, his torrid romance with Ayn Rand.
Ooh,
which, let me tell you,
I
that
see.
was interesting. I do not remember the 6 pillars of self-esteem. I don't think I needed them. But, took what I enjoyed and left the rest. Great book if you have self-esteem issues.
Michelle was trying to rid of superiority complex issues, and I think she was worse afterwards.
I was like, you know what? He's right. I'm okay. I'm great, in fact.
Step 2 of consuming self-help content. And this one, me and Michelle came up with, and I find it super interesting. See how the self-help content aligns with your values.
Yes, very important.
Here on Build a Wealthy Spirit, when we say values, we're not talking about generic values. Okay, we are talking about the values quiz that we have brought up multiple times on this podcast, and we will link to it in the show notes so you can find your values.
Yes, as recommended by Sammie's therapist. And we enjoy it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We think it really does help to clarify what are the things, top 5 things that you really value. Lately,
self-help related, I have been getting really into the idea of eating whole foods, eating healthy.
Not to be confused with Whole Foods, which we do not have.
No, we do not have a Whole Foods, and we are not trying to promote them one way or the other. We are talking about food that has not been overly processed. I was trying to think about why I care about diet. Like, what value of mine does it speak to? Because I think a lot of people care about diet for a lot of different reasons, but I was trying to find out specifically for me, which value does eating healthy line up with? And for me, the big value was discipline.
We got a little Jacko Willix over here.
I don't know why, but discipline is my second value. And I just love discipline. In fact, Michelle's right. I do love Jocko Willink. I read his book and I was like, oh my God, this person is me. This is like the first time I've ever seen somebody speak on this topic in his book, Discipline is Freedom, and have the same opinions on discipline that I have. And I was like, we are the same person. You can imagine my surprise when I then later saw a YouTube video of Jocko Willink And I'm like, okay. Maybe you would have less in common than I thought because
he's a big Navy SEAL, dude, and you're a tiny little female.
He could squash me.
You know what? He's your spirit animal.
He's my spirit animal. But I like the discipline of eating healthy. I like thinking about how to organize the meals. I like sticking to them. I like the idea of just treating myself well from a health perspective, but also planning that and organizing that and having the discipline to stick to that to then see the results or the freedom that ensues in my body.
I love that, Sammie, because I think knowing your values is super important. For example, a lot of self-help content can be focused on making $100 million tomorrow. And I don't think either of us have a high value for having, I don't know what you would call that. Like, it's not that we don't manifest abundance, but I don't really wake up every day thinking, how am I going to make $100 million?
I would think this is saying that you don't necessarily value wealth or fame or reputation, but maybe you value the freedom that $100 million would bring you, or the generosity that $100 million could bring you.
Yes, I love that. Those are great points. So just knowing your values and just reflecting on how that interacts with whatever content you're consuming, I think is super helpful.
Step 3. And when it comes to step 3, we're talking about the 4 tendencies.
Yes, you can check out our episode on the 4 tendencies. It's based off of Gretchen Rubin's research, where she identifies 4 tendencies: upholders, obligers, questioners, and rebels. And it's really about what motivates you. What is it that helps you tap into things or do things? Yes, this is a self-help book in itself, but I will say maybe the bigger takeaway is also think about your personality and what type of things resonate the most with you.
That's right, Michelle. The 4 tendencies are upholders, obligers, questioners, and rebels. And each of these personality types are going to approach self-help differently. And an obliger might see a self-help recommendation and feel like, ooh, I should do that. And that might make them feel guilty. Versus an upholder might be like, yes, this is something I can do and take action on. And they get excited.
A questioner might say, why? What do I need to understand about this to buy into it? And a rebel, like myself, chances are it's very difficult for us, honestly, to be told what to do and whether or not we tell it to ourselves. But that's actually super helpful because, we were talking about diet earlier, and something that I've been really good about on and off, it's my Achilles heel, is cutting out sugar out of my diet. And growing up, I'm in this family filled with diabetics.
Yes.
Our dad's siblings,
all
our cousins.
We're
just literally at our family party, our very diabetic family party, eating cake, eating ice cream, eating all of this sugar, laughing about how we are going to get diabetes anyway.
And then going into a food coma afterwards.
Yes. And you know what? This was all I knew. Then one day I was dating somebody and he sat me down and he said, you need to stop saying things like that. You don't have to get diabetes. Watch this food documentary. And it was all about how the government is working with big sugar, and there's all these conspiracies essentially around how there's just so much sugar in our diet, how a lot of commercials and even like Harvard doctors have been bought into basically talking about how sugar is not actually that bad for you. And as a rebel personality, this worked great for me. I really resonated with the idea that somebody out there was trying to screw me over. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take control of my own diet. I'm going to cut out things like Coca-Cola because you know what? Coca-Cola and that sound, they're meant to manipulate me. And that worked for me. Maybe other people, that's not how they're going to get sugar out of their diet. But if you're a rebel tendency and you're trying to, I recommend a food documentary.
100%, Michelle. Knowing your tendency can totally help you implement self-help ideas that you do want to incorporate or habits that you do want to incorporate because you know how to motivate yourself.
Exactly, Sammie. Even little things like just knowing yourself. Like, for example, if someone explains to you the science behind why sugar is bad, that will like resonate with you.
Versus a questioner.
Yeah. Well, question, and also you, because you enjoy science outside of the tendencies. Versus for me, if someone starts talking about the science of why sugar is bad, for me, I'm going to fall asleep faster than Sammie listening to The Alchemist. So I think part of the first couple things that we're talking about here is really knowing yourself and knowing how you process information.
Step 4. Test out whatever habit or whatever self-help information that you want to try. Test it out for a few months.
This, Sammie, I think is a big one. You know, I remember during the COVID lockdowns, we read The 5 a.m. Club, loved it.
Loved it.
Totally bought into what Robin Sharma was talking about.
It's just an inspirational book. I can tell he's one of us.
He is. He's an Indian man. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. every day. I'm going to do his little practice, own your mornings, elevate your life. I was all about it. And I did do it for about a month. I tracked the times that I was waking up, which, let me tell you, was not always 5 a.m., but it was earlier after a couple of snoozes. And I really checked in with myself, and I was like, yeah, I'm not enjoying this. Like, my body was tired. I was honestly stressed with work too, so I wasn't even sleeping that well. And then I would wake up in the morning and I would do my little yoga and I would journal. And then I was just bored, and it felt cold and like quiet and eerie to me. Like, I never felt that morning magic that people talk about. And I was like, you know what? I understand that waking up early and having that extra time in your day can be really great for some people. It's not for me. I'm a night owl. Magic, muse, it hits me at night, like in a way that just never happens at 6 a.m. And so I'm always happy to wake up for something if I need to. But I was like, I don't need to buy, like, this whole idea of you're a better person if you wake up early, it just didn't jive with me. So I was happy to learn about it, try it, and then say, thank you, but no thank you.
And that really brings us into step 5, which is reflect on how the habit, that self-help change that you tried to implement, reflect on how it makes you feel.
Yes.
I remember when I read Shonda Rhimes' book, The Year of Yes.
Loved it.
Loved the book. Did not love the concept. I was saying yes to everything. My schedule was becoming overburdened. I'm an introvert. I was not getting a lot of alone time, and I had a lot of work to do. I really wanted to say no. So when I reflected on how saying yes made me feel, I thought, no, not for me, at least not now. I think that tendency could be good if you're in a new city or a new environment, or you have a lot of time and you want to explore things. If you're already busy, you're overwhelmed, and you could really use some alone time, saying yes to everything is not a good idea. So after you implement something, see how it made you feel. Yes, you did the habit. You made it a habit. How wonderful. Do you actually like it, and does it actually add value to your life?
You know, Sammie, I love this specific example because I think it really also shows how something can serve you in different seasons of your life. I'm the same way. Again, if I'm in a new town, like when I moved to Austin, I was saying yes to everything. My coworker wants me to go to a concert with a band I've never heard of? Sure, let's do it. You want me to come to dinner with my other coworkers? My only friends in Austin were my coworkers. I would say yes to those things. And then after a while, my schedule would get full. When I was in San Francisco, for example, I could not find time for myself. And then I shifted into the Derek Sivers idea of heck yes or no, which is if you're not 100% excited about it, say no. So then I would say no to things. And you know what? That was great for my mental health. So see how you're feeling. Maybe you did something and it was good for one season of your life, but keep in mind it might not stay that way. Just because somebody you love, like Shonda Rhimes, wrote a book about it and it changed her life, doesn't mean you gotta have 20 years of yes.
Takeaways.
So takeaways for this episode. Take in the content with no goal in mind. Just absorb. Just see what interests you. Step 2. Consider if it aligns with your values. And we're not talking arbitrary here. Take the values quiz if you haven't already and see what your actual values are. And feel free to post them in our show comments on Substack so we can learn about each other's values.
BuildAwealthySpirit.com. Also, step 3, we love to consider our tendency. So we're big fans of Gretchen Rubin's work. We have a whole episode on it. Knowing that I was a rebel tendency really helped me define how I was going to implement different self-help techniques. Step 4, test it out for a few months. A lot of data out there says that it takes 30 days, 60 days to make a habit. Whatever it might be, it obviously is going to take a little bit of time to adjust and see, okay, I've applied the discipline. Do I feel better for it? So maybe you're like me and you decide, guess what? I woke up 5 a.m. I'm good. Or maybe you will be happy with the change and decide to keep it going for the rest of your life.
And lastly, reflect on how this habit or self-improvement tip made you feel. If you feel bad, just throw it out the window.
At the end of the day, it's about you. We want you to be better. It's self-improvement. It's self-help, not what everybody else says is best for you. No. Have a filter, take in the good, weed out the bad. That's our best advice to you.
Community time!
Before we say goodbye, it's our community time.
So as you guys may recall, one of my patients posted on Facebook and said that he sometimes hopes that he falls ill so that he can come to the clinic and see me.
A common thought, it turns out.
A common thought indeed, because I was talking to my other patient who is always hitting on me. This is just the kind of life that I live.
Our little Miss America celebritante.
Wasn't made for all this
She's
office
like
visit stuff.
She's like if a physician assistant was a Barbie.
So he was talking to me, and he was saying that he was talking to another gentleman about how they like coming to the clinic because just seeing me helps them feel better.
You know what? I also feel better just having your sunshine in my life. It's crazy though. I would literally never say that to my doctor. Like if I had a hot doctor, like that one hot doctor on YouTube, a hot Mike or something.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like he's super hot. Like if he was my doctor, I would never be like, and I love coming here because you know what? You're hot. Anyway, ready for my pap smear.
Oh, just give it a few decades.
You know what? Maybe I admire the cojones on these people or the don't give an F attitude.
So he told me he was talking to a friend and they were talking about coming into the clinic. And then the friend was like, have you seen her sister?
Oh, God.
He said, she's just as beautiful.
Well, thank you. Where are these people seeing me? I do not leave the home.
I was also concerned. I was like, you know what? We're getting our groceries on Amazon or something because this is not working. Okay. I gotta hide my sister, hide your kids, people, because these people are coming out after you.
Yeah, they need to read a couple of self-help books about what is appropriate to tell their physician assistants. But you know what? I'm glad that people appreciate you, Sammie.
Thank you. He did say even women have been saying good things. Thanks. Like, about the quality of my care, right?
You're like the only person who's under the age of 60 who's doing medical care here. So, which is also, I think, in their age range, but whatever. You know what we say, we're a small town 10.
Mm-hmm. We're like a small town 12, to be honest.
If you ever feel bad about yourself, don't even bother reading the 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem. Just move to a small town. I promise you, you will be a hot commodity.
Shoutouts. Julie commented on the Sabbatical podcast, and she talked about how she had been constantly putting off a sabbatical. She said, I listened to your podcast and thought, why don't I have an abundance mindset and say, I'll get this money and 100x it later if I just cut my losses and dedicate the time now.
I loved that reflection, Sammie, because I agree. I think when you're taking time off, especially if you've finally gotten to a point in your career and you're like, okay, one more paycheck, one more bonus, one more bag of money is going to make it so that I can do this thing. And sure, if there's a specific number you're trying to hit, that's great. But oftentimes we keep moving the goalposts because we're afraid to leave. And that's because we're not willing to take a bet on ourselves. And we're not willing to say, okay, you know what? Instead of one more bonus paycheck, I am going to take a leap of faith and I'm going to see if I can 10x this in my future because I can have an abundance mindset. I can attract more wealth. So I loved that she was energized by a sabbatical podcast. We love to hear from her.
Another completely random listener named Sophie,
Mother,
we're talking about our mom, said that she loved the sabbatical episode as well.
Yes, she enjoyed it. You know, she does not like the idea of retiring, but she does like the idea of a sabbatical. So we are very excited about that.
And she does like the idea of us taking a sabbatical so that we can hang out with her all day.
She may have suggested that we both take sabbaticals and then move back home with her in California. In fact, she's like worried, I think, that we're going to leave and then she's going to be stuck working. Let us know your thoughts on this episode. Let us know, what are some self-help stuff that you've enjoyed? What's some stuff that you were like, I did not enjoy this? Reject.
Oh, yes. In the comments, let us know your favorite self-help book, because yes, I want to read it. And 2, your least favorite self-help book. I'll tell you mine. Jordan Peterson. 12 Principles or whatever it is. I hated that book. So it's like one of the only books I wrote a scathing review. I'm sorry, but the book just annoyed me.
Yeah. I tried it, and then Sammie told me it was terrible, and I was like, thank God. I didn't want to finish
Michelle asked me what I thought of it, and I was like, it sounds familiar. I went to my Goodreads and saw that I wrote a terrible review on it, and I was like, no, I remember now. I despise that book.
Ugh, God, yeah. You know what? Like, again, you can filter for yourself. And look, we're not here. We want to hear your favorite and least favorite self-help books. Again, take and leave what works for you. We're not trying to bash on anybody here.
No, we're not.
But the point is that you can enjoy something that we don't enjoy. We can enjoy something that you don't enjoy, because we're all different people. So let us know. buildawhealthyspirit.com.
And most importantly, be sure to join us next time as we put down the rule book and rethink the status quo.